Dr. Dame Commander Susan IP-Jewell is an experienced analog astronaut, space medicine physician and scientist, entrepreneur, and exponential technology expert. She received 2 knighthoods for her humanitarian work and providing opportunities in human space exploration to the underserved communities, general public, and citizen scientists. She is a strong advocate in supporting United Nations social development goals in equality, diversity, and inclusion, and believes that space is for all. She is the president of MMAARS, the Mars Moon Astronautics Academy and Research Sciences, offering virtual astronaut training and in-person analog astronaut simulation missions. So great, thank you very much, Dr. Jewell. I'm gonna let you take it away, okay?
Thank you so much. I'm just going to let you know I'm at the MMAARS base in the Mojave Desert. We've got limited Wi-Fi and it's 112 degrees. So I'm really living the Mark Watney life because we have an upcoming mission. So I want to say, excuse us if we leave, if we drop out now and then, just have to be patient and just consider it to be a Mars delay comms. So with that, I will try to share. So I'll try to share my screen.
Terrific.
So I'm going to be very interactive with my presentation and show some videos. So I'm going to show the first video as a test to see if we can show the videos without any technical hitches. And so with that, thank you so much, Michael and the double Michaels, right? And this team for allowing us to present our work here under MMAARS, Mars Moon Astronaut Academy and Research Sciences. That's what we are. So we are training the next gen analog astronauts will one day also be able to be commercial astronauts, also the next gen leaders and super space heroes. The idea is the convergence of both academic innovation and research, but specifically focusing on novel frontier technologies, what we do. So not only are we a training academy, we're also a R&D research institute. And we have been deploying missions and doing this since 2014. So we're not the new kid in the block. We've been doing this for multiple years. And now we're building the first MMAARS base here in the Mojave Desert, literally about 40 minutes drive from the Mojave Spaceport, which will be the epicenter, I feel, of commercial space and private civilian space, building the economy out here in the California desert. So here is actually very hot right now. As a heat wave, we're going to be going up to 117 degrees. But in this mission, I really want to show you not only training resilience, the inner space overview of the individuals and the crew, but also testing technology. When you consider bringing in technology and trying to test not only the user engagement with the technology, how do they learn acquisition of skills, knowledge, but also the technology itself. So in this mission, we actually had 3D printed robotic arms that melted in the heat because it went up to 111 degrees. So, and then we also go to Nepal, Himalayas, which was then minus 25 degrees, and then nothing worked there because it froze. So in the desert, it melted, and in Nepal, in the Himalayas, it froze. So that was also another way of how we're going to test the technology and develop the TRS. To tell you that it's not just about going into space. It's really what Dr. Madhu is talking about. How do we engage leaders or those not in the choir, because we're all in the choir, right? To bring them on board. And so we use space and astronautics as a way to inspire, innovate, and educate. But also very critical that if you're going to bring in the whole of humanity into the conversation, it needs to have to impact the idea of inclusivity. So everyone, no matter what their background is, what their is an idea, you need to bring them on board. So how do you do that? How do you bring everyone on board? I apologize.
Yep, no worries.
See, this is a real-time problem that we will encounter, and we do encounter, and why we deploy analog astronautic training missions is to look at the technical challenges. One is obviously, you know, internet bandwidth. So
are you seeing
thank
my
you so much,
screen?
Mike.
Are you seeing my screen? Is this
Yes,
is
yes,
this the slide you want to be on?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
terrific.
So with this slide, this is the where we're building the MMAARS space. It's literally about 40 minutes from the Mojave spaceport. The idea is working with the community. Next slide, Michael. Okay, so it's very important that we engage, we engage everyone, right? So the whole idea of UNSDG of inclusivity, diversity, and equality is paramount for, and this is as an introduction to be able to inspire others, innovate with frontier novel technologies is what we focus on, as well as the education. There's very much a continuation of what Dr. Matt, right? How do you engage the public? How do you 21st century education very attractive and using technologies like augmented reality, spatial computing, and so on, so that you can come in remotely as tele-avatars. And the idea of, I see this is going to be a technical challenge.
Yeah.
Please bear with me. But anyway, so MMAARS is very focused on the social impact and inclusivity. We have several initiatives that we'll show later in the slide. Can you move next slide, please, Michael? So here is a very high level overview of our training program. You don't come in just one time, it's incremental, it's progressive. We're going to curate probably the first degree program in our virtual training as well as in-person training. And we're the only organization as a commercial entity, but we have deployed to austere environments, Nepal at 15,000 feet. Next year, we'll be going to Everest and beyond. The idea is that the person comes in, the participant, they're able to continue training, and the training gets more complex, more riskier, and so on and so forth. And that's really a part of the vision of us being able to curate a very unique experience, and everything is very experiential. So the idea of experiential learning with exponential technology is the key to what we do. We focus only on novel frontier technologies, cutting edge technologies, either in the laboratory about to come out into commercial viability. And that is what we feel makes us one of the differentiators from other analog training programs. Next slide, please. So here is, really just high level very quickly of our virtual 1, 2, and 3. And you could see here, virtual 1 is just an introductory. Then there's a specialized track to virtual 2, and then virtual 3 is a capstone, because remember, we're very academic focused as well. Lots of scientists, researchers, and come in, and then they get a chance to actually deploy their idea or their project into our missions, in-person missions. Next slide, Michael, please. So here's a high level, just a flyer of our hybrid virtual program. So the idea is you come in, like we're doing now, but it's not all passive. The key to us is that we want you to engage interactively. So using the technologies that we've developed using spatial computing, using, tele-avatars, but also because we got our MMAARS Space Camp here and we deploy missions, you're able to come and interact with the crew in real time during the simulations. And so this is what's so unique about the program. So it's not passive, just talking heads, talking, that's always never an engaging experience. And I think that's so unique about the program we offer. Next slide. So yes, here's an example of what we're doing. We're launching this. It's literally using augmented reality, but we work with Microsoft with the HoloLens and be able to bring in and gamify the training. And that, I think, is the key of the future. And the younger generation really onboarded with this technology, using HoloLens, using Magic Leap, to be able to come in as multiplayers, as tele-avatars, and be able to learn and go into these learning modules. So in this case, our first module will be the Mars Medic, because we've been curating and pioneering the first Space Medics program since 2016. Next slide, please. And here is the in-person mission. This is a selection, there's images below of just some of the activities that they get to engage in when they come into our missions, right? And you can see across the board is IBAs, EBAs, where they engage with technology. That's fundamentally what they interact with. And this is just a small selection. But the idea is in our missions, It's very much modeled on the template of NASA astronauts. It's very heavily scheduled throughout the day. So everyone knows exactly what they're doing, where they will be, what they will be doing, who they will be with, and so on and so forth, so that every minute you're accountable for that. And what I really want to show you is at the upper left is where we've developed our first mobile portable expandable base camp. And that allows us to scale up as a business model. That allowed us to scale up. It would allow us also to do very different caveats in the simulation, like station to station. But the upper right is what we're building here, huge geodesic domes. Remember, this is an analog Martian-Lunar settlement or lunar community. So we're not going to, at this point, build it underground or in the air, or, so it's just a prototype. But the idea of the huge geodesic dome connected by tunnels and expanding over time that allow us then to bring in thousands, over thousands of our analog astronauts coming in trained, but also living in long duration isolated confined environment, which has never been done before. Because right now, today, we only have small crews. And the maximum, I think, is what we've done at MDRS partnership was 12 to 16. But usually it's only 6 to 8. Well, that's not the model we want to try out and develop when we go to Moon and Mars, right? We want to build a community. So this is from our vision of what we are trying to do. Next slide, please. So here's an image of the very first we tried out. This is our modular, expandable. We can reconfigure it. We can build and deploy at different geographic locations. You can do station to station, which I think is what's going to happen in the future when we live on Moon and Mars. I'm not just going to have one station. So, but this is really just in I think it was 2015 when we deployed this, was actually the Mojave with the very first crew. Next slide, please. So the idea of that is, how do you scale up, right? Because we're also a business, a for-profit organization. So we're looking at the building and incorporating the business model, right? So that is, I think, is what the younger generation want to be. They want to be the captain of their spaceship. That's the saying, captain of their ship. There are the founders and startup CEOs, and that's a part of the training that we offer is the entrepreneur or the entrepreneur track. So you have to think about, from a business standpoint, how do you scale up your idea to make it commercially viable, right, financially viable? And that is one of the ways that we were able to do this, very unique to us. So this graphic is us a depiction of a future Mars base camp, and it's just your on the surface, yes, it could be also underground. It could be in the air, and air. Something called the stratum. The idea of looking cities. Who knows, right? So the thinking is to try to get you to think out of the box, be very innovative, and that's it's a very novel technology. But what's the to use space and these images? Next slide. So this is what we're building. This is our moonshot that we will have developed within the next 24 months, probably. We started it already in the Mojave. It's the MMAARS base, kind of like Elon when he says he wants to build a star base, right, where he is in Boca Chica or Chica Boca. I forget how to say. I'm Chinese, so you have to excuse me. I say things reverse. But this is what we're building, the MMAARS base. Okay, next slide. And then here you see the progression of our timeline projection of our training facility as we move forward. Next slide. I'm really rushing now because I'm cognizant of the time. So here are some examples of lots of IVAs, which is, or EVAs, extravehicular activities that you engage in when you come into our mission, and then IVAs, which is a lot of activities, but really it's about like the teleanesthesia, telesurgery, which now I'm going to segue into. Next slide, please. So this was what we did with MDRS. I'm sure James recognizes the first crew that we did. The very first time we pioneered station to station, we had our portable base camp about a mile away from the MDRS station. And I think this is one of the largest analog crew that was ever deployed. And then we split them up into two crews, one living in the MDRS and the other living at the MMAARS base camp, and then we swap them over. But the idea is, like, how do you solve problems from, if you had, threw in all these caveats and scenarios and challenges that they had to overcome, they had to find solutions to work together and collaborate and cooperate and communicate. So yeah, this was very interesting, and this is what we're going to continue doing under MMAARS. Next slide, please. And here is some examples I'm going to show you of the exponential technologies with a lot of our researchers, and these are researchers in very novel frontier technologies. And you could see when you come into mission, you engage with telerobotics. In fact, that's a 3D over here, the upper left. That's an actual 3D printed robotic arm that was controlled remotely about 300 miles away in Las Vegas. And working with the crew here, who were all non-medical crew members, and learning how to do intubation, teleanesthesia, and telesurgery. And with the person that was controlling the robotic arm, in fact, this was melting. So we had to figure out, jerry-rig, how to stop it from melting. I mean, this was amazing, challenge as well, but also to be able to integrate technologies in developing protocols and procedures for eventual, astronauts that are going to go beyond low Earth orbit and onto the moon and Mars. If they don't have the ability to communicate with the surgeons, with the medical team, with the engineers, then they could come in and teleport as teleavatars, telepresent. So that's kind of what we're doing. Here is a picture of us going to 15,000 feet in Nepal. This is our first space medics. We call it Mars Medic back then in 2018, deployed at 15,000 feet. And these are all medical doctors, space, aerospace, precision scientists, emergency doctors, and trying to also test the technology, but also how do you work in very austere, dangerous environments. And then, of course, rovers and the drones. And I'll show you, if you have time for the MediNaut, to show you a video if I don't lose you with the comms. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so in our program, as I said, there are virtual 2, 3, there are specialized training. Here's some examples, just showing you that it's an ongoing, incremental, more, the program is not just the one, come in and that's it. We support you along the way. In fact, you'll be part of the alumni community, you get scholarships, we have internships, we have mentorships, and so on and so on. It's a fully curated program, training programs that we have. Next slide, please. So here's an example of a specialized training. This is our MedTech Innovation track. Of course, I'm a space medicine and physician scientist. And so I'm very interested in how do we develop the technologies to be able to enable us to offer medical interventions in space, but also apply that to improve the interventions here on Earth in disaster areas, for humanitarian applications. So here are just a few examples of projects, but including also technology. So in these pictures, and there are many other projects, but these are some examples that they do in the mission, is that we have the PAP here. So this was invented by the anesthesiologist, and he's actually in the OR doing, he's an anesthesiologist, so he's doing intubation with COVID-19 patient. So he wanted to really secure the providers there, the surgeons, the nurses, and not be exposed to the virus, the contagion. So this is the first prototype of the PAP here, right? The power air purifier respirator that we're bringing into and testing in our mission. You can see them wearing, oh, they're not there, it's the next picture. So the other one is the teleanesthesia. This is the vapor jet. Is this going to change the way that we are going to do medicine and surgery here in austere remote environments, but in space? Because right now, there is no capability or technology for us to do medical surgery in space, even on the ISS. So if there's a life-threatening situation, what do we do? Stabilize the injured astronaut and then throw them in the Soyuz or this, Dragon, and then they have to go through EDL? No, so here is, I think, a great example of why innovation is important, and using these analog missions to be able to force you to think innovatively. So this is the first 3D printed anesthesia inhalation device. And this was actually 3D printed on the ISS by NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. So cheap, oh, that's fantastic. Then what do you do? Float it around in pictures? No. You got if you're going to invent something, make sure it has application. So for us, is we're training the crews, these all learning how to 3D print, as well as to just quickly say that. So I want to end with that it's about innovation. It's about thinking out of the box. It's also about, oh, by the way, I just want to end that this is our TRL-4, and this is a solar powered 3D printer that we've been working on and able to 3D print all these medical devices in austere environments like in Nepal. As long as you have solar, the sun's out, then you're able to be off grid. And I think that's also innovation and changing the paradigm of how we can supply and resupply, not resupply, but supply the tools that we need or anything that the technology provides. So in this case, 3D printing. So I really wanted to, if you can go to the next slide, that would be great, because I will end with that. I really want to say it's really about, one, education, two, using exponential technology for experiential learning. That's what we're providing. And four is to make sure that whatever you do, it has an MTP, a massive transformative purpose that has social impact, not only for us in the future to become multiplanetary, but also the social impact here to improve life on Earth. And that is what I think is critically important, and bringing everyone on board, because why? Space is for all and not just the elite few. So thank you for listening. And if you want to, you can reach out to us. We're at www.MMAARS.com. And I appreciate you listening. And thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I'm sorry for a little bit of technical issues on your communication side, but really interesting stuff. Thank you for joining us. And I agree. Your innovation is kind of the key to the future, right? Whatever the future is, it's the key to the future. So thank you very much.